What's going on, everyone? I'm Theo here. Today I'm going to be giving you guys some tips on how to catch some more fish at night from the surf. Um, so I think that one of the places we should start with catching more fish at night is, um, first off, an obvious thing is your headlamp. Don't keep your headlamp on when you're fishing at night. That's going to scare away a lot of these fish because if you're a striper sitting behind a rock, you don't want to, like a light shining by your face isn't going to be natural. So keep your headlamp off after you've started fishing. Moving spots, I think aiming it away from the water obviously will help, but I think keeping that red light on, which somewhat I think they see less, that will help a lot. But to get into real kind of fishing here, one of the main things I want to talk about is profile. I think profile is going to be your biggest thing when fishing for stripers at night. I think during daytime it can be a little different, but I think at night it's definitely profile for me. I say this just because I have had nights where I've had fish on bait this big compared to, and there's been somewhat big fish on it up to like 35. I've also had fish on squid like this big, and comparing the two is so different just because of what these fish will eat. So I think knowing what is around, and a good way to know what's around, try different lures. There's one way I found out, actually I was just thinking about this the other day. When I was eating dinner last night, I was thinking about this really big fish I caught last year, and like minutes before, my friend had caught like 2 squid on accident on a needlefish that they were just eating it, and for God knows why. And it was a full moon and there was a lot of squid out, and I'm sure these bass, I pattern them out somewhat well now, around this time of year. I think they come and there's a squid run or something happens in this boulder field where these fish push out and they eat that squid, where the squid comes in deep on this full moon. And I think it's something around that. I don't know. Probably be very hard to know. But yeah, I think it's something around with that. And fishing around that squid, I was throwing a Danny plug like this, similar to this. Not this exact one. It was a Gibbs bunker one, but I think color is very low on my list. It's more of, can they pick out, the color is kind of like your assist, is what I've kind of figured out. If they can see it, I think it helps. Like if you have a very dark night and you're throwing black and purple, that'll help you, just because the fish can pick it out way better than a white, I think, just the way the color contrasts to the water. Yeah, I mean, fishing profiles, that's like what you have to remember is, what are they eating and what am I throwing? And keeping it natural too, I think that's very important. Like something I want to try this year is fishing these GT eels. I'll actually grab one for you guys right here. These can be very effective due to the fact that if you're a big striper, what is the easiest way to get a eel? It's not to go up to the surface and pick off a big Danny plug that doesn't look as natural as you'd like it to be, but it still looks like a meal. Or you sit behind your boulder and this gets dragged by and it looks perfectly like a eel or pogie or whatever you want it to be. And if this is right in front of your face, way less energy to go and get this than it is to swim up 20 feet in the column to go grab something else that puts you in danger, and you're just wasting more energy. So that's 2 big things. Profile and fishing natural. I think there's a lot of different ways, just to keep talking on fishing natural. Like Bill Wetzel, I know with his needles, there's a thing he does where he works them almost like a pencil, which can be, I had a night with my friend Will where he was nailing fish doing that, and I was still catching fish, but it was a somewhat bright night, and he was throwing like this plastic sort of needle, and he was doing really well on it, and keeping it like that really active presentation helps. So remember to do that. And just keep these things in mind. I don't have any set of rules, to be honest, when I'm fishing. It's more of like figuring out the night. Every night can be different. That's definitely a big thing to remember, is every night can be different, whether what's around, what the surf is like, weather conditions, wind, anything can, like, they're all variables you gotta remember. Then as for another thing for fishing at night, remember the tides. Like, there's a big thing with, I had a few, like almost a, I don't know how long, let's say a 5-night bite, where it was almost every cast for the first 2 or 3 days to fish to like 30 inches. But it was a short window. It was definitely a short window. But when you found that window, it was really, really good. And when I was there at this kind of shallow boulder field, we were just nailing fish. And pretty much, sorry about that, pretty much to a point where it was figuring out when this tide flips and when these fish, I don't know if they were cycling around or they were pushing in from deeper water, but if I had to guess, I would assume there was some bait fish that is getting pushed into these boulders and a big school of these bass is coming in to feed. And we couldn't really hear them feeding, which also kind of messes with me a bit. But if I had to guess, it was something with that, or just a feeding pattern they had. There was a lot of fish in the area that were kind of doing the same thing. But yeah, that, as it goes for fishing at night, there's a few key things, and I think I touched on them pretty well. If you guys want me to mention anything else, I think fishing the water column is definitely something very important. Remember that. I kind of touched on that with the GT eels. Just remember kind of where these bass are hanging and keeping it natural. I think that's a big thing to keep in mind. Well, yeah, that's all for my kind of night fishing to catch more fish tips for you guys. If I didn't say anything you guys thought I should have said, leave it in the comments. Yeah, that's about it. Thanks.